Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, July the 28th. We'll focus in on the tropical scene around the world here over the next several minutes, but let's first talk about the continental U.S. here in terms of a big transition coming for the Great Lakes and northeastern part of the nation, the Mid-Atlantic region, during this week. The next few days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, quite hot and humid. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Then a slow-moving cold frontal system will grind its way through the northeastern quadrant of the nation Wednesday night, Thursday time frame. Could have some heavy rainfall associated with that transition, and it transitions to a comfortable start to the month of August, which begins on Friday. Looks like comfortable air will move into the mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. for Friday, and likely leading to the nicest weekend of the entire summer in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S. with comfortable temperatures and humidity levels. Again, there will be a potential for some heavy rainfall during that transition period Wednesday night and Thursday as we transition from the very hot and humid conditions over the next few days to those comfortable conditions this weekend. Well, let's now switch back to the tropical scene here, and it's been quiet so far in the Atlantic Basin, quiet across much of the Pacific Basin, and the entire northern hemisphere as a whole is less than 50% of what it should be this time of the year. But there's still plenty of time for a lot of activity. In fact, this is a plot that shows the climatological peak of the Atlantic Basin season comes right around September 10th or so. The red here shows a combination of hurricanes and named tropical storms. The yellow, just hurricanes on a comparison with a long-term period of 1944 to 2020. In both cases here, the hurricanes by themselves or the hurricanes and tropical storms kind of reach a peak right around that September 10th time frame. And this is because the sea surface temperatures tend to reach their peak near this time of the year. Certainly sea surface temperatures in the tropical Atlantic kind of ramp up into the month of August, maybe reaching a peak late August, early September, and that again is correlated with the climatological peak of the of tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin. By the way, by Atlantic Basin I mean the Gulf of America, the Caribbean Sea, the tropical Atlantic Ocean, all three of those areas, all the way out to the west coast of Africa. That's your Atlantic Basin. Again, typically reaches a peak in the middle part of September. Now let's take a look here at the sea surface temperature anomalies as we close out the month of July. We've kind of talked about this at length, how the equatorial region of the Pacific Ocean is featuring below normal temperatures. The equatorial region of the Atlantic Ocean experiencing below normal temperatures. That is shown here in the blue here. Again, these are temperature anomalies right here, the equator marked right here with this EQ, and you can just draw that imaginary line right across here all the way to the zero on the temperature scale over here. We have below normal conditions, colder than normal waters here in the equatorial part of the Atlantic and the Pacific as well. Now, also notice another important factor here, warmer than normal sea surface temperatures farther to the north here across the northern Pacific and the northern Atlantic Ocean here. This is a kind of an interesting combination now. Again, we're looking at a map here of anomalies. What this does is tends to smooth out the temperature gradient. When you get colder water where it's usually warm and warmer water where it's usually cooler, that tends to smooth out the temperature gradient, and that is leading to a quiet tropical season so far. Again, not only in the Atlantic but the Pacific and the Indian Ocean as well. In fact, we can take a look at that right now by looking at the actual temperatures. That prior plot consisted of the anomalies. These are the actual temperatures in Celsius right now here. And this is what I'm talking about. When you're warmer than normal up here across the northern Pacific and cooler than normal in the tropical, the equatorial Pacific Ocean, you kind of smooth out that temperature gradient. It's really not much of a temperature gradient in, for example, the western part of the Pacific Ocean. When you don't have that temperature gradient, you kind of lose out on some convergence convergence area. And same thing in the Atlantic here. You can kind of see relatively similar temperatures here from the North Atlantic. We're looking at 28 degrees Celsius here over the Outer Banks region and 28 over the Caribbean Sea. So it kind of smooths out that whole temperature pattern with the water temperatures here. Again, that leads to less in the way of convergence where you have that sharp temperature gradient. So this is a contributing factor. Still relatively early, and there are reasons to believe, in addition to climatology, that the activity will ramp up during the month of August, and we'll get into that over the next couple of minutes here. Now, we've shown this map during the last few video discussions, and I want to get the latest here, the update. This far right column is really the most important thing to look at right here, the accumulated cyclone energy, or what is known as ACE. A very good way to measure overall tropical activity. The higher the ACE, the higher the activity, and it takes into consideration not only the magnitude of a storm, whether it's a Cat 1, Cat 3, Cat 5, whatever, but also the longevity. If it lasts a couple of weeks, that will produce more ACE than if a system lasts only a couple of days here. And in all cases here, we're running at below normal levels for this particular stage. Again, things could change during the month of August, but as of right now, as we close out July, below normal. We break this apart into different basins here. The North Atlantic is this top line right here. The climatological value of ACE shown in parentheses, 9.2, and we are far below that right now as we get to the last part of the month of July. Now the Pacific Ocean is so large, it's kind of separated into two, the Eastern Pacific and the Western Pacific. By the way, this table from Colorado State University. Below normal conditions so far in the Eastern Pacific, below normal in the Western Pacific. Now the Indian Ocean has had no activity so far. That means no named tropical storms or hurricanes so far. And of course, that is well below normal for this particular stage. So the Northern Hemisphere as a whole, less than half of what it should be as we close out the month of July. But again, we'll see. Plenty of time to go here. We'll see activity very likely ramping up in the month of August, certainly across the Atlantic Basin. It's ramping up right now in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean as well. But this is where we stand right now on July 28th. Now, one teleconnection index we'd like to look at this time of the year to give us an idea about potential changes in tropical activity. It's called the Madden Julian Oscillation. Basically, it tracks a tropical disturbance that kind of regularly moves along the global tropics here, and depending on that location of that tropical disturbance or a complex of thunderstorms, it kind of dictates the pattern over different parts of the world. And it looks like it is going to move in what we call more active phases or locations of that tropical disturbance as we progress through the month of August. Specifically on this kind of a plot, the phases are marked right here. This is phase 7, this quadrant, and here is phase 8, phase 1, and phase 2. And when the MJA rotates into phase 8, 1, and 2 this time of the year, generally leads to more upward motion over the Atlantic Basin, and that in turn generally leads to more tropical activity. Indeed, this forecast from the European model goes from July 27th all the way up to August 10th, and it indeed moves counterclockwise in this kind of a plot, and it will rotate into phase 8 by the end of the month, and then into phase 1, and ultimately into phase 2 by the time we get through that first week of August. And again, 8, 1, and 2 typically more active time periods. So not only do you have sea surface temperatures warming up through the month of August, we have this indicator that there will be enhanced upward motion as we progress through this first couple of weeks of August. So look for some activity, certainly by the latter part of the first week of August going into the second and third weeks of the month of August. And again, we're way below normal right now, but still plenty of time left to make up for some of that over the next several weeks. Again, the peak typically around the middle part of September. Well, let's wrap up by looking at the surface maps from last night's zero-Z run of the GFS. These maps from tropicaltidbits.com. Very hot stretch of weather here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. Looks like D.C., for example, well up in the 90s this afternoon, especially on Tuesday and Wednesday, probably upper 90s both days in D.C., Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. Looks dry for the next 48 hours, let's say Monday and Tuesday, rain-free in the Mid-Atlantic region, and then we'll have to watch the increasing chance for showers and thunderstorms late Wednesday and Wednesday night, certainly on Thursday as a frontal system moves in. Here we talked about kind of complexes of thunderstorms on the northern side of that upper level ridge, and here's such an example here. Overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. Again, this will travel to the south and east. Here it is early tomorrow morning over the western Great Lakes. This will be an organized area of thunderstorms, still hot, humid, but rain-free in the Mid-Atlantic region on Tuesday. Again, those afternoon high temperatures well up in the 90s in most areas. Then we move into the midday on Tuesday and then into the midweek time period. And here's where a frontal system starts to show up in terms of rainfall. And you notice this isobar pattern up here across Canada. There is a nice, strong Canadian high pressure system moving into the south central part of Canada by the middle of the week with a very, very comfortable air mass. Move a little bit forward in time, and there is that high pressure system. This is the forecast map now for Wednesday night. And the leading edge of this comfortable air mass here will be that surface cold frontal system right around this area, and it will be a slow mover into the day on Thursday. And here we go into the day on Thursday, and there will be a frontal system lying right in this area here early Thursday with that strong Canadian high now over the western Great Lakes. And this may even feature a low pressure system developing along that frontal boundary zone. And that could very well end up producing some heavy rainfall during this transition. Again, we're transitioning from quite hot and humid conditions over the next few days to very comfortable conditions by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in this part of the nation. And with a low pressure forming along that frontal boundary zone, don't be surprised to see some heavy rainfall, maybe late Wednesday night and especially on Thursday. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, as that cold frontal system slowly works its way to the south and east. Here we go, in fact, on midday Thursday. I totally believe this, that the rain is intensifying here from the GFS model run with that low pressure area forming right around that frontal boundary zone, which right at this time lies along this area right here, right through, cut through the Mid-Atlantic region. Here we go into late day on Thursday, some heavy rainfall depicted here by last night's zero-Z GFS model run. By Friday morning, that front slowly edges its way off the coast. Still could be a lingering shower or two on Friday morning in portions of the Mid-Atlantic region. But look at this, a 1030 millibar high as we begin the month of August with a very pleasant air mass. By that I mean well below normal temperatures and very comfortable humidity levels here. And that dominates the scene. Here we go into Saturday and then finally into the day on Sunday. That Canadian high that moves through south central Canada all the way across the Great Lakes reaches the Mid-Atlantic region on Sunday. Very likely to be the nicest weekend of the entire summer in the Mid-Atlantic, in the Northeast U.S., in much of the Great Lakes region. Again, beginning on Friday, which happens to be the beginning of the month of August, a beautiful change here coming for the northeastern part of the nation. Meanwhile, down across the southeast, they unfortunately maintain their hot and humid conditions with PM showers and thunderstorms likely across the deep south, and that goes all the way down into Florida as well. So we've taken a look at the tropical scene. It should ramp up in activity during August, and big changes coming over the next several days in the northeastern part of the nation with very hot and humid conditions today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Big time transition Wednesday night and Thursday with some heavy rainfall and then beautiful weather Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Orion.